This car, mate, it's given absolutely everything. It's just got no rear end.
Yeah, let's go back on FP3, SP2 and make it better for next time. And good work out there. And keep it stronger. Good work in the week as well.
Is Carlos at the podium?
Yes, he is, P3.
Good job too.
Charles, it was quite a DRS race for a lot of people today. Just how difficult was it to overtake during that race?
It's the way it is, but I've got to take responsibility if qualifying didn't go our way yesterday. It's because I did a mistake in Q3, and this weekend happens, and it's been a very strong season so far for me, but this weekend I haven't been doing a great job, and in qualifying I pay the price of the mistake in Q3, and in those conditions when it's tricky, that's where I should be in front and taking that as an opportunity. I didn't do that with that this weekend. Today we pay the price of that because I was basically stuck in traffic, and it was a little bit of rolling the dice which strategy would be best. You would only hope that you were on the same strategy as the guys which were faster. I unfortunately was on the same strategy as maybe cars that were struggling a little bit more, but Liam was doing a really good job defending, had a really good straight line speed, and was just impossible to overtake even though we had more pace. So that means that it's not been a great Sunday for us.
Can a failed exchange for the 8th place become a costume crisis that shakes Ferrari? What happened between Hamilton and Leclerc in Azerbaijan is not just controversial. It is a warning of something much deeper. The Azerbaijan 2025 Grand Prix will be remembered for a moment that had nothing to do with victories or podiums, but that could mark a before and after within the Ferrari Scuderia. What at first seemed a simple routine instruction ended up becoming an emotional and strategic trigger that undressed all the internal fractures of the team. A team order, a silence by radio, and a decision that, although small in appearance, generated an earthquake within Maranello. Last lap. Baku, a treacherous street circuit where the walls seemed to breathe. In that tense context, Ferrari was far from the positions of glory. But even there, the team sought to rescue what could with a pre-acted tactical decision: return the position to Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton, who had advanced his partner a few times before a specific condition if he could not advance positions, he had to return that position at the end of the race, received an instruction that did not leave interpretation. Let Charles forward you. He's a second and a half behind you and it's the last round, they told him. The tone on the edge of the plea was already an alarm signal. There was no answer. Silence. But not anyone. A silence that in Formula One weighs tons. Ferrari insisted, let it pass. Simultaneously, Charles Leclerc received the same information. They told him that Lewis would let him pass on the finish line if he did not anticipate any other pilot. And so it was, he did not advance anyone. Everything was arranged for simple, automatic execution. A change of positions without drama, in theory. But Hamilton, when approaching the final stretch, did not act as an obedient pilot. He slightly lifted his foot of the accelerator, yes, but he did it in such a calculated and minimum way that the gesture ended up being symbolic, not effective. Reduced from 340 km per hour at just 184 km per hour. An ambiguous gesture, as subtle as evident. It was impossible for Leclerc to reach it. And I knew. He crossed the finish line just 464 thousandths ahead of his partner. Half a difference. Just to say he raced, but not enough to fulfill the order. Leclerc's immediate reaction on the radio was devastating. He didn't raise his voice. He did not break into shouts. But that calm in his tone hid a deep anger, a disappointment that goes beyond 8th place. I don't care, he said. May he enjoy this 8th place. Simply stupid. It's not fair. But honestly, I don't care. This I don't care, repeated, is not real indifference. It is resignation. It is the voice of a pilot who has tired that the rules of the game are not respected. A pilot who feels that, in a team that should treat his pilots as the same, the balance always leans according to the internal narrative of the moment. In this case, in favor of a newly arrived star. Because behind this controversy, the background is much more. We are not talking about a tactical misunderstanding. We are seeing an egos duel, a leadership clash that Ferrari has failed to handle. Leclerc, raised in the Italian house, has been the banner of the Scuderia for years. Hamilton, 7-time world champion, arrives with the aura of legend, but also with an expectation to be number one. And when two worlds collide, the small details become symbolic. A disobeyed order is not just a failed order. It is a statement. A direct message to the box's wall, the teammate, the fans, the media. Hamilton wanted to win the pulse without saying a word. He got it. But he did it at the expense of something that Ferrari values deeply. Unity.in Formula 1, trust between pilots and team does not break suddenly. Erodes. And every thousandth that Hamilton maintained that position was like another drop in a fracture that has been forming from the preseason tests. Baku was not the origin of the problem. It was simply the place where it was exposed. If the Baku incident left a visible wound in Ferrari's structure, what is under that surface is even more worrying. Because the real problem is not that Hamilton has not returned the position. The real problem is that Ferrari no longer controls his pilots. And what is worse, neither does it seem to control the internal narrative of your team. These types of situations do not occur by accident. It is not the first time that we see fracture signs between the box's wall and the cabin of the SF-25. From the inaugural Grand Prix in Australia, the relationship between Lewis Hamilton and his career engineer Riccardo Adami has been anything but fluid. And in a sport where each millisecond is decided by a joint decision between pilot and engineer, the lack of communication is not just a style problem. It is a tactical time bomb. In Monaco, the tension reached a visible point. During one of the key sessions of the weekend, Hamilton launched a direct question on the radio. "Are you upset with me or something?" There was no answer. That uncomfortable pause, in the midst of an environment where the exchange of information should be constant and precise, revealed something much deeper than a technical difference: distrust. And when a pilot does not trust the voice that guides him from the wall, he is alone. But even more serious is when the engineer does not trust that his pilot will execute the instructions with discipline. But all this is not exclusive to Hamilton's side. At the other end of the garage, Charles Leclerc is not comfortable either. His post-Baku reaction is not the first time he expresses frustration with the organization of the team. Since 2023, the Monegasco pilot has dealt with questionable decisions in the race, bad synchronized stops, and incoherent strategies. And although in 2024 it seemed that under the direction of Frederic Vasseur the ship straightened, this 2025 is showing that the old seams were never completely repaired. They were only concealed. Hamilton has tried to adapt its driving style to the SF-25, even copying the braking trajectories and the Leclerc's accelerator-reflecer transition. But if there is no open and reliable line of exchange with your engineer, all that learning becomes fragmented. As if the car was not really his. And if Ferrari fails to rebuild that internal confidence, if he does not find a way that his pilots and engineers speak the same language, with the same objective, then no matter how many horses of force the SF-25 have, the real loss will not be in the stopwatch. It will be in the spirit of the team. Beyond personal tensions and radio silences, there is a technical truth that cannot be ignored. The car suffers from erratic behavior and long braking. In Baku, this translates into a constant loss of confidence for the pilot. Each entrance to curve becomes a bet. Will the front tires block? Will the rear respond to the time of the turn? Leclerc felt it on each lap. Hamilton suffered from trying to adapt his style, even imitating his braking point. But it wasn't enough. The car did not return control. The SF-25 does not forgive the slightest error in tuning.in addition. Throughout the weekend in Azerbaijan, Ferrari dealt with faults in the monoplaza hybrid system. This was admitted by Fred Vasseur after the race. These failures did not mean abandonment, but they did condition the use of MGUK, the component that allows to recover and deploy energy during braking and acceleration. In a circuit like Baku, where the use of the hybrid system in long lines is essential to defend or attack, that limitation represented a critical disadvantage. Not only is it power, it's about trust. If the pilot does not know how much he can deploy, if he feels that the car does not respond as he should, then stop pushing to the limit. And when that happens, the race is lost from before starting. Ferrari arrived in Azerbaijan hoping to take a step forward in his fight for the 2025 championship. But what was lived in Baku was the opposite. It was a painful demonstration that talent alone is not enough when the structure that must sustain it begins to fail from within. The most alarming thing is not that Ferrari has not achieved a podium, or that their pilots have ended out of the fight for the top positions. The truly disturbing is the way in which this result occurred. Tactical disobedience, broken communication, accumulated frustration, and a car that remains an unknown in urban conditions. Each of those elements, separately, could be a simple setback in a long season. But together, they form a pattern. And that pattern points to a truth that the Scuderia cannot continue to ignore. Baku exposed 3 layers of the same problem. First, internal management between pilots. If Hamilton and Leclerc fail to establish a functional respect beyond the sports, the conflict will climb. Second, fragility in the chain. A team that gives a clear order and does not see it fulfilled has a problem of authority. And third, the SF-25. A car that, despite having promising elements, is not responding in aerodynamics or in balance or in integration of the hybrid system.